Welcome back to my garage. Hammer Creek Motorsports. Craig Diefenbach. Thanks for the cap. Nice. Since I returned from America, I've been hard at work designing the cases for my new cylinder. I think I told you in an earlier video, but Kai Wheeler, I'm not quite sure how you pronounce it over there, Kai. But he designed, or I designed, and he machined the head and the head insert for this new cylinder for me on his homemade CNC machine. A CNC lathe and mill combined. Great job. And he's also going to machine the cases for me when I've designed them, when the design is ready. And I'm almost there. I'm basically the only thing left is finding out where to mount the injectors, or which injectors I'm going to use. About that. So what's going on here is, if you've been following on Instagram, you know already, because I've told you. So follow me on Instagram for kind of in between videos updates. Anyways, the point here is to run a small carb, not that small, 24 millimeters, a pumper carb, a small, or at least short pumper carb with a rear intake. Thank you, Coldy Woody, for the carb. You sent me a box of stuff a while back, and I'm always finding use for a lot of it. So thanks, man. Anyways, small carb with a rear intake, and that's for starting and bringing the engine up to RPM. And then a giant no valve at all, no intake valve at all. Intake always open, takes over. It's tuned for the specific RPM which the engine is supposed to operate in. Remember, I'm running a CVT, and now the CVT will be electronically controlled with RPM feedback to always keep it at the exact RPM it's supposed to be at. So yeah, tuned intake for that RPM, which happens to be 19,000 RPM. Methanol and nitromethane injection in that intake. So this carb will run on gasoline. The primary will be run on methanol and nitromethane. 70% nitro, no, 30% nitro. That's the highest percentage I can get in Norway. So I'll have to stay with that to be able to perform testing here. So injection. But I'm not, I actually, Terje E, a long while back, Terje E got me, or sent me, this Ecotron small two-stroke engine EFI kit. It's complete, mostly. The thing is, I know that getting injection on a two-stroke is really difficult, especially at really, really high RPM, because there's just not enough time for the injectors to fire at the correct time in the cycle. You need to fire while the transfers are open, and you really need to close at least at TDC or when the transfers close. You can't do that in at such high RPM with normal injectors. They just can't open and close fast enough and deliver enough fuel in between opening and closing. If you don't do it that way, if you just spray at so whatever duty cycle, the problem is you will get some cycles rich, some cycles lean, because fuel won't be properly mixed in the crankcase, and as there's a lot more mixture in the crankcase than what's used in one cycle, you can get a couple of cycles with a pocket of no fuel at all, and then maybe a couple of cycles with a lot of fuel, and then maybe one with the right mixture, and the engine will just not run properly at all. What I'm going to do is a continuous injection thing. I think that's the plan. As at this moment, that's the plan. A fuel pump. Connected to that fuel pump will be some kind of nozzle. That's my injector. Probably an injector nozzle for nitrous oxide systems. And the pump will be driven by a PWM signal from an Arduino. So I will basically just throttle down the pump to deliver the right amount of fuel. So my EFI, it will be electronically controlled so that it can self-adjust for weather and pressure, like weather conditions and altitude. But the controls, the electronic bit of it is controlling the pump. So it's kind of like the old mechanical injection, like the whatever. Kind of mechanical injection, but electronically controlled. Continuous injection. So no pulsing, like in injectors, because that's the problem with normal injectors in such a high RPM two-stroke engine. I need a lot of ignition power with the nitro and the methanol and nitro fuel. So I got this one, which I thought was a fixed ignition point unit. Later I found out it has a curve, so I'll have to work around the curve. I don't really need a curve. I wanted something static, because all I need is the right ignition timing for 19,000 RPM, which Emot simulations tell me is the right RPM for my new tuned pipe and the tuned intake and the crankcase volume and the porting and everything. There's a curve, but I can just adjust for the curve when I set the timing. So analog, no programmable ignition this time, just kind of a fail-safe thing that will work. So I won't have to doubt the ignition unit like I've been doing lately. Even though it turns out it really wasn't the Power Spark's fault this time either. Yeah. Piaggio Variator. Piaggio Stage 6 RT oversize Variator this time. Because I'm running a Piaggio RT crank. It's the 39.3mm stroke, but a 90mm conrod. The long conrod because of more port area versus port timing, and also higher ports for the same port timing, but also less angular force or side force on the piston, and that might be kind of important because I'm running the special retained ring pistons, which Mark Atkinson kindly made for me. It's his design too. This special stepped ring that's retained inside the ring groove, and it's not allowed to move more than about 10 thousandths outwards. So should be able to seal without being able to snag in a port. That's the theory. Not tested yet in my engine, at least. Yeah. That's about it. I haven't made a video since I came back from America because I've been busy designing. It's not that much fun watching me design something in Fusion. I'm not that good. It takes a lot of time. I do a lot of mistakes. I have to redo everything a bunch of times. Everything gets cluttered. It's not really a tutorial video watching me in Fusion. So yeah, but I'll be back now. Things are happening. Can't wait to get that case done and start testing this 100% of bore exhaust port concept, testing this retained ring concept, testing the always open intake, no intake valve concept. A lot of concepts, and I have big hopes for these concepts. I think this can be the most powerful two-stroke ever made. There will be a lot of comments about that Varsava or whatever big house of a two-stroke engine. Yeah, about that. Also the comments about two-stroke not having intake valves. Two-strokes have intake valves. Either a reed valve, or the piston is the valve, or the piston uncovers a port in the cylinder wall, and that's the intake valve, so it's piston ported, or a rotary valve, or a drum valve. But this new system, this system I'm going to run, there's no valve. There's a gaping hole into the crankcase when I open that big intake. So the pulses will take care of the transfer of, or the blocking and the transferring of mixture into the crankcase. The reason a valve or no valve is better than a valve there is because there's nothing screwing with the pulses. That's the theory, anyway. Yeah. The rest of this video, I thought I would answer some comments, because there's been a long while since I've done that. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. I'm getting progressively worse at replying to comments, and it's just I don't have the time, and I'm so focused on what I'm working on, and I don't feel I can. I feel I have so little time doing what I want to do here, and there's just no room for, and replying to mail and everything. Sorry, I'm really sorry, really sorry. There's a lot of like great video, great job, well done stuff. Thank you for all those comments, but I'll focus on the ones with questions or stuff I'll have to answer, stuff that will need a reply. It's kind of, yeah, okay. Do you ever think to yourself, I'm an alcoholic? Well, you probably should, because you are. Yeah. Well, and I replied, I'm really not, just think it's funny portraying myself as one. And that's true. I don't drink a lot, and the few times I drink when I'm out here. Some of the times I'm out here, I drink a couple of glasses of whiskey or rum. And that's all, like once or twice a week. I think my drinking habits are much more healthy than a lot of other people's drinking habits, at least here in Norway. How many kilometers an hour? How many horsepower? I don't know. The engine should produce, the old engine, at least 18 at the wheels. That's 20, between 20 and 23 maybe at the crank. No clue how fast it would go, because we never got it to go any fast, because when it was running like it was supposed to there, and the stinger broke, and then the exhaust gasket blew, and the cover for the belt had broken off, and stuff was breaking. Stuff needed to be fixed, so we called it a day. And as the engine is not supposed to be used next year, and the chassis was working perfectly, there wasn't really much point in taking it further and breaking more parts of the engine or stuff like that. So, and we wouldn't have gotten any like good speed without the stinger anyway. I watched so many episodes, and now I see that the goal is to build a completely useless bike with a horrible sound. Haha. Yeah. At least you have time to figure out water and ice cooling, like my snowmobile. Yep. We're getting rid of the radiator, and we're going for a heat exchanger in an ice bath, stolen from Mark Atkinson's bike. We visited Mark Atkinson on our way from in Salt Lake City, and had a look at his bike and his great shop, and he's a great guy, really a great guy. So just like I imagined he would be when I met him. I was kind of surprised how much like in his videos he was in person also. Which crank did you use in the first tests? That's it's a stock replacement crank for the SPX, and I thought, like, my thinking was that the racing or performance cranks weren't any better, just marketed as better and shinier, but nope, not like that. Actually, the racing or performance cranks, even for the SPX, are better. I didn't like the way you stopped the piston to remove the clutch. You can put dents in rod pins and possibly squash ringland. Yeah, that might be a problem. Might be part of the issue with the squashed ringland and bent or broken bearing. Might be from a bent rod from doing that. So yeah, I'll stop doing that. I'll use something to hold the variator and or an impact driver to do the ignition nut. So yeah, I'll stop doing that. Has worked fine for me for years though. Michael Hemmerling says, we call it Bendover, Utah. Yeah, the town is called Wendover, so Bendover, Utah. Lessons learned, better preparedness. Yeah, that's important. We weren't too well prepared, or I wasn't too prepared for this, and I just didn't have the time to do the proper testing, and if I had say a month longer, I would have broken all the stuff and fixed it here on the dyno or on my back roads here before we went there. But then it got rained out anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered. Tyson Scott, do they plan to race Pikes Peak? No, we just went up there to have a look, and but Travis has been racing Pikes Peak quite a few times. He's actually banned from Pikes Peak from being kind of rude on the telephone with the management there regarding some stuff that happened with his friend. So yeah, but he's raced Pikes Peak and won Pikes Peak a few times. A random guy from the internet says, I can't believe the bike is finalized without a front dustpan fender and a full pointy fairing. That's not going for it 100%. And I agree, but the class we're entering is a no streamlining class, so there's no fairings allowed at all. The only thing allowed that's borderline streamlining is a tail section. So yeah, that's why there's no streamlining on the bike. I know there's been a lot of other comments about this too, that I should add some fairings and that will help. But it's not allowed in the class we're entering. It's a no streamlining class. Maybe next year we'll do a partial streamlining where you'll have to see the rider, but you can do some fairings. But probably staying with the no streamlining class because it's simpler, and why not? Like beating the record in the no streamlining class is kind of the same thing as beating the record in a streamlining class. Like you have to stay within the class anyway. I will someday though enter the full streamlining class and break the D record, the fastest 50 ever. That's the plan. Sounds like it has nice torque. Why don't you use a smaller rear sprocket for more speed? Well, actually the bike is geared, so when it's geared out fully, it's geared to do more than 130 miles an hour, which I know it can't do, or it shouldn't be able to do that. So it's geared higher than what it can achieve. And with the Variator, that's not a problem, because it will stay in the power band anyway, even though it won't reach like gear out. Are you going to do some weight reduction to the frame? Nah, like weight isn't too important in land speed, because acceleration isn't really that important. So, and like say the bike was like 50% heavier, I still wouldn't need more than half a horsepower more to reach the same speed as if it was 50% lighter. So weight isn't that important in land speed. It's like wind resistance, drag, that's the like 95%, even more when you get really like going really fast, even more. You get to a point where everything else is just nothing compared to the drag, the wind resistance. Is EGT sensor better? That's Acura RL. Is EGT sensor better than AFR sensor? Yeah, it's like in a two-stroke, it's difficult with an AFR or like an oxygen sensor, because there's a lot of unburnt fuel, and the oil and the unburnt fuel will kill the sensor fast. You can get proper readings, but EGT lasts longer, and it's like if you know what you're looking for, if you get the baseline and you know that your bike runs like best at say 1250 Fahrenheit EGT, and it ceases at 1260, then you know, like, then EGT is all you need. Keep it at 1250. Higher, let off. So yeah, no, EGT and AFR do kind of the same thing in a two-stroke, if you know how to use or like interpret the reading. And coupled with cylinder head temperature, it's really, EGT is really all you need, and cylinder head temperature. Like, then you don't need the AFR if you can read it. A few of the comments, and I'm sorry for not like having the time to reply to everything, and I try to read them all, and I really appreciate that you're commenting and watching my videos, and yeah. Okay, so as soon as I'm really decided on what I'm going to do with the ignition or injection setup, and I think it will be as I told you earlier in this video, I'll I'll send it off to Kai Wheeler, and so he can machine it for me. Thank you for doing this, Kai. And we're on our way to a new adventure for next year's Bonneville Speed Week. So next year will be Speed Week in August, because there's a much higher chance of that not being rained out. Yeah, thanks for watching. See you next time.